From Perth, Australia, and broadcasting around the world, you're listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCorry. The O Show is a no-nonsense podcast bringing you the best advice on training, mindset, and nutrition to supercharge your efforts in the gym, the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. Don't forget to share this episode on your social media. Now, let's get to it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's episode of The O Show. I am your host, Oren McCorry, and today I have on a good friend of mine and the ex-Ulster rugby captain, Chris Henry. Chris, how are you today?
Yes, I'm great. Thanks, Oren. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome, man. And it's lunchtime there for you and evening time for me here. So we're at different stages, different parts of the world, but we're making this happen, and we're gonna have a bit of fun with it, mate. We're nothing too scripted, just gonna go to town on things. So let's talk about who's Chris Henry. If people don't know and they're listening to this, maybe the Aussies over here who haven't been following rugby at the European side and don't know who Chris Henry is, let's give us a bit of a background to who you are, the level you played at, and a bit about yourself personally, Chris.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, that's a tough question to start, isn't it? But yeah, look, I Belfast born and raised, so always grew up in North Ireland. I, like any typical youngster, always loved sport and all types of sport, but rugby was the thing I probably clicked to the most. So started playing rugby when I was 5. Went through grammar school, a school over here called Walls High School, which probably forced me into rugby a bit more. And with my studies, I was a decent student, but certainly it wasn't my passion studying. I did decent enough in my levels and got a geography degree behind me from Queen's University. But rugby was always something that I loved. And when I left school, I played for Irish schools, got involved with the Ulster Academy, and lucky enough to have played professional rugby for over 14 years at Ulster. And yeah, I mean, if you ask me who is Chris Henry, well, as I said, I'm a Northern Irish lad who now is now a dad of 2 young children, a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. And gosh, I think it's a hard question to answer because who are you? I like to think a normal lad who was lucky enough to kick a ball around for 15 years and now trying to find myself in my new life, my second career, as people say, once you hang up the boots and play in pro sport.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. And now let's dig into that, because obviously you've played at a pretty high level the whole way through since school. So how does that go with starting to play at a young age and then moving up through the ranks? Like, can you remember any key moments where you were moving up through and you kind of thought to yourself, you know what, fuck, I can actually make this? Or when was the point where you realized that this was going to be it for you and you could actually make a career out of a sport that you loved?
Yeah, I think I'm probably when I was about 18, 19, whenever I just came out of school, and you're in an academy, but there's obviously so many other young kids your age in there. And I'd decide to do a geography at Queen's, because in my mind I was thinking, right, well, do a degree that gives you plenty of options. I was thinking probably going to teaching, which would have been something I think I would have enjoyed. But I think around 19, where I realized actually, a lot of my other peers were then starting to maybe get a few caps for Ulster and push on, and I thought, right, you know what, I could make it. So I actually started my degree part-time, went to part-time basis, because at that stage with Irish under 21s I got selected for, the World Cup was in Argentina that year, which was a 20-year-old, you're going to get your flights, a ton of kit, which was amazing. Then you get your bag of kit every year. You go, wow. So, we got to go to Argentina for 3 weeks and play in a under 21 World Cup, and you're staying in, top class hotels and looked after. And so I think that was the first time where I went, you know what, this could be the fact that you could do something you love for a living. The realization was this wasn't too far away from me. And then in saying that, it took me, I didn't have my first Ulster cap till I was 24. Which is later than a lot of other lads in academies, especially nowadays with rugby. You think, as soon as you're kids nowadays, that rugby's moved on so much and sports moved on so much that younger players are probably more physically developed earlier. And I definitely wasn't I didn't lift a weight. I didn't touch a weight till I was 18, which just doesn't happen now. The school structures in Ireland anyway, and I know in Australia, kids are taught about their diet, you're educated more about strength and conditioning, and that's what definitely held me back. But I got my first cap with Ulster when I was 24, and within 12 months I got my first cap for Ireland. So it all happened very, very quickly. And I don't remember that one moment, I guess, where I went, I always thought it would be a cool dream to do, but I never woke up and went, oh, today's the day. It was this thing that you stuck the process, and eventually, luckily for me, it got there. But there was days where I definitely thought, is the sacrifice really worth it? Because a lot of my friends, when they were in university, they were staying in halls, they were enjoying their university life, and I wasn't doing that. As you know, Oren, since we've known each other, I enjoy whenever I played, I always enjoyed a few beers after a game. I always enjoyed socializing with family and friends. But I mean, those early years when I was 21, 22, I went, they got to 2 years and didn't touch a beer, didn't touch, I'd given up chocolate, I'd sacrifice. I knew that if I wanted to get there, I had to change what I was doing. And I laugh back going, I can't believe I was able to stay off a pint of Guinness for over 2 years to get there, but it was worth it. So that's the kind of my journey. And when I thought, I can maybe do this for a living for a while anyway. And as I said, I managed to do it for over 14 years.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And you said it was 24 when you got your first cap. So how many caps did you get overall for Ulster? How many times would you have played, and sort of how many years did you play with Ulster then from that first cap to retiring?
Yeah, so I from getting my first cap, I played just over 10 years for Ulster, and I got 184 Ulster caps. And with Ireland, I managed to get 24 Irish caps. I never, sadly, for Ulster perspective, I mean, there was a few times where I thought about, contract negotiations with players. They usually last, either 1, 2, or 3 years. And, I'm very proud to say I played for one club, only one club in my whole career. But there, deep down, it would have been lovely to have tried maybe something different too. Obviously Rob Kearney is now a neighbour of yours. I believe you have your 5-bedroom penthouse overlooking the beach, and he's right beside you, I think, isn't that right? You wake up and you, morning Rob, morning. So yeah, Rob Kearney had a pretty incredible career with Ireland and Leinster. He's now made the move to the other side of the world to play in Perth, and that is just what a story, Rob's probably maybe 2 years younger than me, so he still has some rugby in him, and it's a brilliant to see that the world, even with COVID, that was able to happen. I was only a one club man with Ulster, and unfortunately the weather, it's the 6th of April today, and it's snowing this morning over here, if you believe it or not. So I don't think it's snowing where you are at the moment.
No. It's still nice here, mate. 20, 30 degrees, so we're winning.
Oh, stop it.
So, mate, where would have taken your fancy then over the years? Obviously, you were loyal with Ulster, but when you got to that stage where every 2-3 years it was negotiating the contracts, where would you have liked to went to, or where was serious contenders as potential clubs or regions that you would have liked to go to play?
Yeah, there was 2 teams in England that the conversation had gone past the initial stage. Have actually gone over and seen their clubs and had discussions with their coaches. So it was firstly Exeter Chiefs, and that was whenever Exeter at the moment are one of the top teams in the English Premiership and won the Premiership. But their journey was taking them a long time to get up in the top tier of rugby. So they were in the tier below, the second tier, and that's whenever I was contemplating moving over. And it didn't just the way it happened with Ulster. A lot of times when you're younger, you sometimes start those conversations to just poke the fire with your home club to say, right, any chance of getting the contract undusted, to be honest. But no, it was a great club, and a few other of my friends had gone over, and they've been there the whole journey. A guy called Gareth Steenson, who's part of the fabric now at Exeter. He's part of the coaching staff there now as well. Right, okay. He made that journey. London Irish was a team which I nearly went for. They were trying to maybe and tie into the whole to get people who are living in London from Irish backgrounds to get them more connected to London Irish. And again, that just didn't pan out. And then the only other club that I was very close to going to, which surprises a lot of Ulster fans, is Leinster.
Right, so I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a strange little time. Like Ulster were going through. There was a few years. I probably would have been my probably the second or third year after getting my first Irish cap, and only because Ulster at that stage, I hadn't the contract negotiations. Whenever you are usually playing and you're starter for your province, you usually get your contract started early in the season. So season starts in September. You would always imagine usually your top tier players would have been done by September, October, November at the latest. But at that year, because just the way Ulster was at the moment at that stage, you were talking January and I still hadn't got my following year contract sorted. So, I was going, we needed, see what other options are out there. And Leinster at that stage, you had an older Leinster crop of players. This was before Leinster had this, Leinster now have this unbelievable academy structure where they have like 15 different young up and coming players in the back row, which position I play now, they have, I think, 4 or 5 guys who are in the Irish squad, but that stage they didn't. They had a few older back rowers. So for me, it was a conversation of going, look, you could go to Leinster and you could actually start for the team. You could be involved with the team. Leinster were just starting that run of European Cup wins. Yeah. And it was exciting to have that conversation. I remember driving home going, but this was supposed to be a trip just to go down and get a free steak dinner and to talk about, how do I use this to make Ulster get a contract at the table. But I remember driving going, wow, this could actually be a really good fit, luckily, after the conversations had and it didn't work out. And I do look back and go, well, if I'd made the jump then, could I have been involved in that Leinster squad when they were winning European Cup tournaments, when they were winning the leagues? But I don't, it wouldn't have meant as much to me because Ulster was my home. And even though we got the playing finals, we got the European Cup final, we got the league finals, we got the semi-finals, and unfortunately for those 10 years, whether it was to do with all sorts of reasons why we weren't able to make that extra jump forward to actually get trophies and silverware, but I still deep down know that I made the right decision to stay here and give Ulster my all.
Yeah, mate, that's awesome. And it shows such a big thing where you could have been winning, European championships and, part of that winning squad. And you're still saying, it worked out for the best in the end, because even though I didn't get part of that team, I'm happy with my decision to stick by Ulster, and they've done right by you the whole time. That just shows you the loyalty and the respect that you've got for the club. So let's dig into the captain's role then. When did you eventually graduate up to become Ulster captain, and how many years were you a captain for?
So the captaincy thing for me with Ulster is a bit strange, because I was never made official club captain of Ulster over the years. But the reason why I was thrown into it was Rory Best, who is has always been my captain. Whether it was I've been captained by Rory with Ulster. I had Johan Muller, South African second row, who's my captain, who was just unbelievable. The way he got the best out of his team. And then when Johan moved, it was always Rory was captain, and Rory was always the kind of unofficial captain, even when Johan was there, because he was homegrown. He was a leader. He spoke. He was away with Ireland quite a bit, so that's why it suited to have Johan as the main figurehead. But when Rory got injured and when Johan wasn't there, then I was usually given the captaincy armband. So it was quite nice, because I was kind of thrown into it at a young age, but because I wasn't made the official captaincy, it kind of took a bit of pressure off, and the most important thing was just making sure I went out and performed myself, and made sure that the team were emotionally primed and ready to go, and we make sure that the boys had done their homework. But it's strange, the captaincy at Ulster and any team with professional sport at that level. I mean, there's moments where you have to poke the fire or speak to maybe guys have gotten bad news, and you have to sort of have those small conversations to keep them motivated. But captaincy, yes, you have to make decisions on the pitch, whether it's okay, we're going to go for the posts, or we're going to maul, or we're going to tighten the game up, or let's loosen up. But it's not like the days of old where you had to bang your heads off the wall and getting guys so emotionally primed that the game has changed now. You look at what's happening in the rugby, where any modern rugby at the moment, the amount of red cards that are happening because of dangerous tackles and rucks, and that's not because guys are it's a physical game. You have to live emotionally. You have to bring that physical edge, but if you're over primed and overhyped, then you're going to make more mistakes. And that's how I felt as a captaincy. It was about making sure that as long as you did your job right and did the right things throughout the week, not just the 80 minutes in the park, then usually you're in a good place. And I did really enjoy it. probably didn't enjoy like the media side as much, being thrown in, having to ask the tough questions, especially if you lost. But yeah, like every time I got to run out and lead the Ulster team out in front of the Ulster fans at Kingspan, or it used to be called Ravenhill, it's amazing feeling, like cool to look back on those memories. And it's only when you do things like this or you catch up with old mates, obviously we haven't been able to the last 12 months because of the pandemic, but whenever you get to have a beer and with some of your old teammates and talk about those moments. But the captaincy was always something I enjoyed, even though it was whenever you had a figurehead of Rory or other guys or Paul O'Connell's or Brian Driscoll's, you knew that you were in a good place whenever they were leading you out as well.
Yeah. And you're talking about people, Chris, that, you know, you're obviously looking up with massive adoration, and you're talking about Rory and Johan in those sort of roles, but you're probably not realizing the people who were under you being led out under those captaincy days, they're probably saying the same things about you. You've probably got the same skills and the same impact on them younger players or them other players who are playing at the same time as what Johan and Rory has had on you. So what do you think was it about Chris Henry that made him the automatic captaincy if the other guys were away or injured then?
I think most of the coaches I dealt with knew that I was never the fastest or the most powerful or the strongest, but I knew that I had to use my smarts, my brains on the pitch to get to where I need to be, maybe anticipate what the ball was, and having the game management of even though I was a flanker, I kind of knew what it took to win a game, is knowing what your strengths were in your team. And I think most of the coaches realize that. And I think a coach, you always want to pick a captain or your leadership group of guys that you know that will go to those places. And I remember, seeing some of the stuff that even like, so Paul Connell, someone I always talk about, where, I mean, whether it was training or a match, like he would go to the well, like no matter what, you knew that he was going to put his body on the line over and over and over again. And that's something I felt that I always tried to do. So whether it was minute 1 or minute 78 or 79, that I was still going to keep turning up and putting your body where you had to be and putting your nose where you had to be. And, it don't matter how many times you stitches or broken noses, that's part of the game. And durability, you got to, with rugby, you got to be durable. And I think coaches knew that, if they, most of the times whenever I got picked, that I wouldn't leave anything out there. It was, I would have put my body in places that I wouldn't have asked anyone else to do something that I wasn't willing to do. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And I think that's why maybe coaches were happy to put me in their team, because they knew I was going to be a menace to opposition and sort of bring people with me.
Yeah. I mean, that's massive. And like, that's something that I think, whether people relate to the rugby background or anything else, like that mental toughness of what it takes to put your body on the line for that sort of better good of the team, and the teammates around you to uplift them, and then to follow you because they know you're setting that example. That doesn't just happen to anyone, right? That takes a certain mindset, takes a certain character, and it takes a lot of being in the trenches and just leading by example with that. So how do you think you built that up over the years? Like you said, you probably didn't touch a weight till you were about 18. And then you quickly ascended to, the top of Ulster rugby. Like what built that mental toughness along the way, do you think?
I think with rugby and a lot of other sports, a lot of it is like the 80 minutes is decided obviously long before the start of the game kicks off. It's about that daily grind. It's about pre-seasons that you accumulate. Like once you get into the season, it's hard to improve your it's hard to improve your squat scores or your body fat scores or your speed scores when you're needed to play week to week to week. It's impossible. You only thing that matters is it's maintaining during a season, but it's those pre-season moments. And I think if I look back to whenever talk about mental toughness, where I felt that a switch had been clicked, was probably some of the pre-seasons that I had whenever, like, Joe Schmidt was the coach of Ireland. So whenever I was down with there and doing big pre-seasons, because I probably thought I was working hard and doing what I needed to do, but actually I was clueless. When you see other peers from other provinces pushing themselves to those limits and where you needed to be to, and the sacrifices they take in regard to recovery. Recovery was something that I didn't really have a clue about until my last sort of 4 or 5 years rugby, really. And probably because of my age, when I got that stage, I went, right, I'm getting sore here. I've got to look after myself better. But the mental toughness, like going up and down sand dunes and dragging teammates, and those moments of when you're taken outside your safety net of being just the rugby pitch. And I look back, as I mentioned, sand dunes, like we always, every year there's always one or two miserable fitness elements, and it wasn't about the fitness. It was about, can you keep going? Will you stop? And then the guys that you knew that were stopping and needed to be dragged along with you, the guys that, even if you're walking or jogging, you knew that, right, if they're at that point now and they're still moving, then whenever it comes to a big game, that they're going to keep moving. Yeah. And I think that's so important. A game like rugby where you have to trust your teammates, that's massive. And I do think at those like really tough, hard pre-seasons and the accumulation, and to know that, to look back at games and to look back at, that was something maybe I did, the psychology side of the mindfulness side, like going into games and looking back at things you've done gives you the confidence to go, no, I've done this already. I can do this again. And it's the same with that whole, just the accumulation of workload. There's not experience in sport to know that you could made those decisions at the right times and learn from them. Like, you can't teach that. That just is lived life experience. And that, it was good. My top years of playing was definitely when I knew physically I was still able to do it, but I had the mental capacity and the mental, intellectual property that, I knew that going to the games, if I felt good and ready to perform, that, I was going to have a good day out there.
Yeah. And then see, when you're talking about stuff like the sand dunes and those grueling pre-seasons or all that stuff that built that character, I don't want you to name names with this, but is there anyone who like would have stood out? Like, you think of this Ulster squad as everyone's going to be a machine, they're all going to fucking get through it. But was there ever people who were just not cut out mentally for that? Like, you're talking about building it and pushing and letting your teammates know that you're there and that's what keeps you driving through. But was anyone clear that they were kind of like not cut out for it from that?
Really difficult question. If I look back at some of the players that have come and gone from Ulster, the mental toughness side, like as a youngster, you need to, especially with rugby, a physical sport, like there's times where you have to play with injuries. Like, that is just the nature of the game. There's very rarely you're going to go in the game feeling like, oh, I'm a hunt, I haven't got a bump here, but my dead leg's still sore from last week. And there was guys that luck in professional sport, I think, is something that, yes, you make your own luck, but you do need the bounce the ball, the being injury free at the right time, to make sure a coach that is influential watches you at the right moment and doing the right things. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, I look back and go, there was moments where I needed luck. Luck happened, and yes, you make your own luck. You keep getting there, and the best players will eventually get there. But how quickly you get there, I think, takes that's where that level of luck comes in. And there were certainly guys that I think that I've played with where you go, it's impossible to tell, but did you have an injury or did you have a bump? Did you have a knock? Yeah. And that's where, do you have the mental toughness to put that pain aside, to go to a place to get you through that game or to get you through that training session, which gives you the chance then to play that weekend. But durability in players is huge. And yes, the strength and conditioning side can help, but there's there's guys that just, unfortunately, with injuries, bodies aren't, guys are retiring earlier now. It's a massive part of a physical game like rugby, where if your body isn't durable, then you're not going to have a lengthy career.
Yeah. And I imagine that there would have been players who maybe talent-wise would have been way up there in terms of their potential to come in, and you just see like, oh, this guy's going to be a future star. And then sometimes maybe they just don't make it because, like you said, they don't have that durability and that potential to, maybe they do, they've got a little bump that you would normally play through, and they're taking it easy because they're classing it as an injury, right? So they don't get as much game time. They're not known for that resilience and that durability. So they, even though they've got all the talent in the world, maybe they just don't get picked by the coach because they're not as reliable as somebody like Chris Henry, who shows up and fucking plays through all those little bumps and only goes off the field when he's fucking, there's blood, Do
you could even categorize it in two types of players. So this is the forwards who work really hard and are really tough, and then it's the backs who don't know about, I'm not doing this, I'm not running today, there, but, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, rugby hasn't changed that much. You do find that maybe your wingers and your fullbacks are just a wee bit easier or quicker to pull out of things. But I know, like, you look at all top level rugby nowadays, and like even like all the top like so the British Lions is hopefully going to happen here in a few months. So I forget.
Yeah.
And you think of like what like the I mean, there's been some seriously good players left behind who should be going in that tour and aren't. But you think of all the the wingers that make big moments and big plays, like Keith Earls, for example, Andrew Trimble before he retired. You know, these guys that made things from nothing, like kicking chases, kicking balls. You know, it's all a mindset. How when you see a ball going there, their ability to hunt the ball down, like that is more mental than the physical side. There's a cracking wee fullback there for Ulster, the one Mike Lowry. You know, if you Google him and see some of his tries, he is not big. He must be one of the smallest professional players out there at the moment. He is so brave, and his mental toughness to take these high balls and to make big moments and big plays. Liam Williams from Wales, like his ability to hunt back and make. You know, you might think a team has scored a try, but he doesn't. From till the whistle blows, these players nowadays with the mental toughness and what brings, they hunt things down, and it could be that one moment where they are able to just get their hand in and cause a knock on or save a play. And that's the difference between like the top level players to have the mental toughness to keep going no matter what.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. And so we spent about maybe 25 minutes so far talking about life in rugby. So let's talk about where you're at now, life after. So for anyone who doesn't know, me and Chris know each other through our wives. So my wife Esther went to uni at the same time in Glasgow as Chris's wife Jade, and they were roommates and they're still good friends now. So that's how we know each other. And I've sort of been there and watched as you've got married, you've retired, you've had the 2 kids, and it's a completely different change of pace to the life as the rugby captain and everything there. So let's talk about firstly how are you coping with it? How's it been transitioning from rugby that you've known for 15 years of your life to now being a civvy like the rest of us and working a normal job and growing the family then?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's definitely moments where you watch these games and you go, especially the one when there's obviously a pandemic on and the games at the moment when you get to watch, brilliant to watch. And I can look at my wife and I go, I think I could still go back out there and give it some. And then you catch yourself on and you go, no chance. I've really enjoyed my career with rugby, but with my last 12 months, whenever you're waking up in the mornings and you're just constantly sore and you haven't even trained yet, and then you've got these young pups who are just so talented and kicking on your heels, and for me, I knew the time was right to go. My body was falling apart, and mentally, I knew what it was going to take for me to get back to the top level, and I just knew that the push wasn't going to be worth the push then at that stage. So I do miss rugby without a doubt. I miss the structure of knowing that you're in Monday, Tuesday, you go in, your breakfast is sitting there, you do your gym, your lunches, but it was never going to last forever. And I do feel like I look back in my rugby career and I'm so content and happy that I think I got everything out of it that I could have. I got to win a trophy with Ireland in the Six Nations. Yes, I would have loved to have won something with Ulster, but it wasn't meant to be, and we still had some brilliant top level moments, and the fans, it was terrific to be able to share that journey with such a small place as Northern Ireland. But no, as I said, I think it was the right thing to do to retire when I did. I actually stopped halfway through the seasons, which is quite different. A lot of players will obviously finish their contract cycle, but I walked away for Christmas in 2018. 2017. And yeah, it was the right thing to do. And since then, I'd spent 12 months after retired, raising money for a charity here, Northern Ireland Chest Heart and Stroke, as part of my testimonial, which was incredible. Busy 12 months, as you said. Then I've had two children in the way there, and then I've started a new career. So I'm working for a company called Applied Medical, it's a global medical device company, specializing in surgical equipment, mostly laparoscopic stuff. So before a pandemic, I would be in surgery most days dealing with consultants. It's really cool, opportunity I found myself in. It wasn't something that I knew when I was coming up to retirement. Players, you always try and have a plan in place. Truthfully, I knew I had a geography degree. Was I thinking about maybe doing a PGCE to teaching, or look at business opportunities? But this opportunity came away, and I applied for it. And yeah, to be honest, it's been, despite being in a pandemic where there's been a lot more working at home, and I had to do, I've been on furlough for probably half the year out of 12 months, which has been challenging in itself. But this has been a really, I feel so fortunate that I've got a job like this. It's a great company. Its mission is to improve patient outcomes. So you do feel like you're making a difference. Couldn't be more different than playing at a rugby pitch. But you still get an excitement. When I get in and get to put on scrubs and get to talk to these consultants who are, obviously the top of their field, world class, you get excited about it, and you get to feel like you're getting up and doing something. So totally different new world at the moment, but I'm enjoying the journey so far. And I don't think I will always miss rugby, and I'll always probably think that I can still get out there and get the boots on and give it some. But at the moment, I feel very content in where I am at the moment.
Yeah, perfect, man. Perfect. And funny, I remember one time we came over, I think it was for a night out with you guys. We flew from Glasgow over to Belfast, and I remember you dropped us to the airport, and we're making small talk at this, and I don't think you were thinking about retiring at that stage, but I was like, what are you going to do after, whenever this all comes to an end? And you said about the, geography teaching and maybe going to a bit of coaching with, academies or other teams. So that's quite a big change from that, which that was a good year maybe before you even thought about retiring, to go from that to then be, all right, I'll apply for this medical job, I might not get it. And then suddenly you're thrown into this world. Like, how does that feel mentally whenever you're maybe mentally preparing for the geography route, teaching or coaching, and then being like, you know what, I'm going to try my hand at something else. This sounds quite exciting. How did that feel like, getting that job, and then, that whole career path just suddenly going, oh, hang on, I'm going this different direction now?
It was daunting, definitely daunting. I had to go to the Netherlands for 5 weeks for an intense training course on, a crash course in surgery, basically, to try, learn about products and listen, I'm not even going to pretend like I am anywhere close to being a doctor or a surgeon, but I need to know roughly what you're doing in a theatre, and how theatre staff work and dealing with people. And I think that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most about this job is actually I get to go out. I get to plan my weeks, which is great with the family. So there is that flexibility of knowing trying to shift your work week, but you get to go and you get to meet people in hospitals. You get to meet nurses. You get to meet sisters. You get to meet purchasing staff. So you get to meet a lot of people, and it's a bit like rugby. You need to try. It's about making connections with people and relationships with people. And you have to actually do it very, very quickly, because these people are obviously under a lot of time constraints, pressure. And I'm coming in to try add value to the service they're giving to their patients. So you need to get your point across, but these people need to trust you and need to know that you're there for the right reasons. And that's what I think I've enjoyed the most, of the connections that I've made despite a world of lockdown. I've met some wonderful, lovely people in the hospitals that are doing an incredible job of keeping the system going at the moment when under huge stress. But it was daunting. As you said, I always thought, okay, rugby coaching might just fall in my lap, but there's a lot of people who want to be coaches, and it's not to be a professional coach nowadays in rugby and lots of other sports, you have a lifespan. You can't stay in one. Very, very few coaches stay in one place now, and it means that you have to be willing to sacrifice and move to different places of the world. And to be honest, I don't want to do that at the moment. My family are here. 2 young kids are here. They're only going to start primary schools and further on. And yes, I'll always be involved in rugby. I was coaching a local club around the corner. I will still do, whenever my little boy's up and he's at the age of mini rugby, the thought of coaching, the kids and stuff, like I cannot wait to do all that. But at the moment, to be able to throw myself into something completely separate from rugby, I think has been really, really good for me. And a real good way of letting that go and putting it behind. And I do enjoy talking about my career, but I'm excited to see where this can push me and whether how far I can go in this industry as well. So
Awesome.
Yeah, it's strange how the world works, but
Yeah.
I'm sitting. It's where we are.
Have you ever had to use your name to get into a meeting, throw in the old Ulster connections or anything, or put at the end of an email saying former Ulster?
No, I haven't gone that far yet. Desperation. You never know, maybe I will soon. But no, the like most places, like it is a small world, and when you get in the hospitals and you're chatting to people, there are going to be some consultants and doctors and staff that I've enjoyed rugby, and then they go, "What's this?" They before, when I didn't have to wear a mask all the time, they would have looked at my nose and went, "Oh yeah, that's your man Chris Henley used to play because of his broken nose." But now it's a bit harder because you're wearing a mask all the time, obviously. But look, it's a great. People want to talk. People enjoy rugby, and that is Northern Ireland especially. So to have short, small conversations about if Ulster were playing or Ireland were playing, of course it helps. Like any sport, like golf or football, people don't. It's nice to relate in a different way, and sport does that. Sport bring people together, especially Northern Ireland at the moment, which was going on. You're watching the news, it's shocking to see what's going on here with. There's been riots now in the last couple of nights, and which is just so would crazy to think at the moment this can still be happening. But sport is just a wonderful thing of getting young people from all cultures, backgrounds together, and it's the same when you're in a workplace. You're able to talk about kicking the ball about. It opens doors.
Yeah, 100%. And so how's it been for the past year with COVID then, speaking about what you've just transitioned into? Because last I seen you in person, we were over for Christmas 2019, right before the pandemic started, obviously in 2020. And we caught up, we were talking about your job and talking about the future plans, but then pretty much 3 months later, we're in a lockdown. You guys have obviously been in it for pretty much a year straight with a few little breaks, whereas we're the opposite over here. So it kind of feels like life's just went on for us, but you guys are in a completely different position. So how's that been with work, with family, with obviously being quite a social person in terms of you would always have had your teammates around you, would have had friends, family, you would have been quite social, you would have met people for brunch at General Merchants and different things like that. How's it been transitioning from such a social background and the rugby around to now like being in lockdown for pretty much that 12 months then?
And like it's there has, without a doubt, like everyone here, I think it's been a really, really challenging year. We are so lucky compared to so many people, but as you know, when you're in it and in those moments yourself, and you do have those dark days where you go, when is this ever when are we going to get back to some normality? And as you said, I've always been very social. I enjoy being around people, and that's been really, really difficult. And my wife's a social butterfly, as you know, Jane and Esther, and not being able to just have those regular interactions. And the funny thing is, you catch up with you phone call or you do your Zoom with some of your friends. Oh, what have you been up to? Absolutely nothing. What have you been up to? Absolutely not. It's Groundhog Day, and it's just trying to find, the small moments. Like when the weather the weather here makes a big difference. And whenever you're able to get outside, get some fresh air, and whether you can see somebody out in the back garden, our grandparents. We have our little boy now 7 months old, and my mum would try get down once or twice a week, usually outside the garden. And you're going like, this is crazy that 7 months passed and your grandparents, and look, you're at the other side of the world, obviously, and you're missing your family, you're back home, and you be speaking to them regularly. But without a doubt, it's been challenging for people here, and you have to just disconnect. When lockdown initially happened, I remember I was just getting caught up watching the news constantly, and it's just being bombarded, and you're going, right, no, hold on, I've got to take a step away from this. Then we got in the routine of walking 10 minutes away to a wee bakery and getting a sourdough every day for months. And at that stage I was at furlough, so I wasn't wearing my suits or anything. And then I put on, I think I didn't have to wear jeans for months. We had a beautiful weather last year. It started all this, which made a big difference. And then I remember trying to put on a work shirt, and it didn't fit. And I went, right, what is going? So to be fair, I think everyone has adapted to this whole way of living a bit better now. And even if we get something this summer, you know, we just have to take the small wins and know that eventually we will get back to normality. You know, the age I am now, I can't wait to go back, you know, to be at a wedding again or to go to someone's stag. But ultimately, you know, we're in a very lucky place in our age. You know, I'm married. I got to have a wedding. You look at how many people have to cancel their weddings.
Yeah.
I've got 2 healthy, beautiful kids. I'm still in the job, you know, so I could sit here and complain about, oh, I wish I could see my mates or go down to watch a match at a pub. But, you know, the big picture here is that I know we're all so lucky and that we will get out the other side. But without a doubt, there has been moments this past 12 months where like everyone just gets on top of you and you just got to try find your way back and stay positive. And whether that is, as I said, getting fresh air, you know, zoning out. I'm training for a half marathon at the moment, which is absolutely I can't. Which stupidly, I don't know why I signed up for it. But it's in 4 weeks, so I'm actually doing quite a bit of long runs, around 19 kilometers there at the weekend. Wow. It's the longest I've ever ran. And yeah, it's been good. Like exercise is, as you know, like it changes you'll be feeling so poorly, waking up feeling so rough and not, you know, no energy, no drive, low, and you go out and you do, you know, an hour, 45 minutes of a, you know, intensive training session, and your day's changed. And that's, you know, sometimes you just need to kick up the butt to make sure you get out and do it.
Yeah, 100%. And like, how's that different? Because that's the longest you've ever ran, and it's completely different to your rugby days where you're getting smashed in the pitch, you're hitting the weights. Like, I'm sure a lot of your niggles from rugby have kind of cleared up in the time since you've retired, but then now you're going for these 19K runs, which are going to hit your body in a completely different way, right? So how's that been?
Torture. Absolute torture. Do you know, the long runs, like my joints and stuff are actually okay. They really aren't too bad. My back, maybe the day after sometimes, but I'm just exhausted the day after. And I come back and I go, right, I've just done that. I've done, you know, an hour 45-minute run. And I'm like, right, I need to recover. And then I'll go to the cupboard. And I'll go back to the cupboard. And then I'll go back to the cupboard. And I'm like, oh, why did I go for a run? But yeah, like I actually went to the gym. I've got some dumbbells and kettlebells. So trying to do a wee bit of stuff here in the house. And maybe once a week, I'm trying to keep on top of it for just my joints and stuff. And honestly, see, doing weights now, so sore. Like I forget the DOMs of weights. I'm like, oh my God, I so forget what that was like. And and obviously, but once this half marathon's over, I'm going to go back and start doing a bit more weights because I think it's something that you got to personally, like, because I did it for so long, you know, 2 or 3 times a week for 14 years. It would be mad to not, you know, continue it a bit for injury prevention more than anything. But this, having a challenge and having a target and being held accountable, like I have a WhatsApp group, we're doing it for charity, for Chest, Heart and Stroke. There's a group of us, 30 of us, from a local rugby team, and to be held accountable, to know that you were all doing this together, and you know, you're sending pictures of your runs, your Strava and sort of stuff, and it keeps you motivated. So I think that's been good. It's been really good, and I will try to continue it for longer term, and whether that's maybe using the bike maybe next away from the running, but I am enjoying it.
How much is that competitive side kicked in from the rugby days with now being in that group and being like, well, I'm not going to be the slowest around this fucking race?
So on the 12th of April here, I'm pretty sure you're allowed to train with 15 people, but at the moment you're only allowed to you're allowed to run, I think, with one other person or 2 other people. Okay, so we there was 4 of us that we did a 2 and a 2, you know, social distance, kept our distance, but we were trying to set the pace roughly the same, but these guys are all like 6 years young, 5-6 years younger than me. So I was like, no, I'll give it a go. So we started this last Saturday, and for the first 12 kilometers, like I felt great. Like we were running fast, like 5 minutes a kilometer, you know, so we're doing okay. Like we're decent pace. And then got 12K. I'm like, I think I can keep this going. This is brilliant. And like 5 minutes later, I was in a world of pain, and I said, like, you just go. So all of a sudden, they just, you know, take it off, and I'm still catching it. It was torture. And actually, the one sunny day of the year, it was so hot, and I was desperate to try and keep up with them, but I just couldn't. I was like, I'm trying, but I knew, you know, I'd given everything I could. But I think I do miss the competitive side of rugby, without a doubt. Again, training sessions, like I always enjoyed when there was a competitive element in it. And now the competition is just is being able to look at your watch and know, right, okay, hold on here, you need to pick it up a bit. You need to you know, keep taking over. And that I'll always, my problem is in starting these runs, I need to start slower. And everyone, I know that's the case. Everyone says pace up, but it's so hard. I just want to get out there and get it done. So a bit more learning in that for me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it'll come, and best of luck whenever it does happen in the 4 weeks. So, but what's next for Chris then, right? Presuming you've got a bit of a roadmap for what you can do on certain dates coming out of this. So hopefully in the next month or 6 weeks, normality will resume for everyone in the north of Ireland and the rest of the UK and the south of Ireland for you guys, because you deserve it. You've been in it for a year. But what do you see as the sort of, when will things be truly back to normal for you? And then what do you have as your big goals, whether it's family-wise, business-wise, you know, fitness-wise? What do you see as making 2021 a success for you then coming out of this?
Well, my wife will be off maternity, so I think that's something where, you know, I'm now in my second career, and my first career was, you know, loved it. This job I found my way into, really enjoying it. I feel like I'm making a difference. So for me, to be honest, if there's one thing I can do by the end of this calendar year is to help support my wife get back to doing something that she wants to do, because we've had two kids in very young succession, and I think that's one positive thing that coming out of this whole global pandemic is that maybe the social structures of, you know, mothers usually are staying home looking after children, and the men are, you know, you get your 2 weeks paternity and then you go back to work. And looking back, I go, it's just madness. Like 2 weeks for a paternity, that's, you know, kids are demanding. Like I always laugh and say to a lot of my friends, I go, you know, I look back at some of my toughest pre-seasons, nothing compared to having a newborn. Nothing compared to having a newborn. When you're in the trenches and you have no sleep and you're, you know, trying to, you know, keep your sanity and you're looking after kids. So I think that's one thing I think would be great if I can help, that if my wife wants to go back to work or do something that she'll enjoy. So that's priority number one. You're asking when I think life will get back to normal here, or you know, what is the signal for me that life's get back to normal? There has been some, as I said, there has been some good things around us. It's made us appreciate the people that we really care about, that you want to spend time with. So I think that is something where I just can't wait to be able to have, you know, your few closest friends around your house for a barbecue, but not be terrified that they can't come in and use your bathroom, for example. You know, we got, you know, being able to go on a small trip, a small holiday like that, to me is just going to be somewhere different than walking to the same coffee shop in the same park. It's just something different, isn't it? Just out of the normal. And expectations are low now, I think, here. You know, if beer gardens are able to open in the summer and you're able to have a few beers and a bit of food somewhere, that's a start, you know. And who knows where we're going to be. And obviously Europe, there's talk of third waves and the vaccinations, and Northern Ireland is doing really, really well with that whole vaccination, but we don't really know where we're going to be yet. So, man, it's about survival. It's about making sure your family are happy, your kids are growing, your kids are healthy, and because professionally for me, I know I have a lot to learn in this industry. So I'm glad that you're blessed to have been given the opportunity. So I think I spent 15 years living a high pressure, intense career with rugby, and this is definitely pressure, but you know, it's not like I'm going out and if I drop a ball we lose a European Cup or a quarterfinal World Cup. So it is different in that regards. So I think if you ask me what my goals are, that I'm keeping up the training. I do think that has played it. Like the lockdown was a great excuse for me to just do very little training, pick out and use comfort food. And I've always used food for a comfort mechanism. And it's, you know, and it's frustrating because I know that I do it, and yet it's so hard to break the cycle. And yet once you break the cycle, you know, I can stick to it. So making sure my clothes still fit, because I was either I said to my wife, I'm either gonna have to train and lose weight, or I'm going to buy a whole new wardrobe, and I don't want to have to buy a whole new wardrobe of clothes.
Yeah. Well, we'll be keeping, hopefully in the next year, mate, we'll be able to fly back home and see our family, and we'll be able to catch up for a beer. And I'll be keeping an eye, and I'll be like, Chris, how's those suits fitting you now? Are you still able to get into them?
100%. You can keep me accountable now. But,
that's it.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Well, mate, I'm not going to take too much more of your time because we've been on about an hour here now, and I know you've got the little ones are probably napping, and you've got daddy duties to get back to, plus probably some work stuff. So I just want to say thanks for the time, mate. Really good. I think there's tons of value in here, and I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, if you've enjoyed this, click the 5-star review, because that's going to mean that the more good reviews, the more we can get on quality guests like Chris and other people who might take the reviews of a little unknown podcast into account. So if you enjoyed it, please hit the 5 stars, tag me, tag Chris. Chris, just shout out your username on Instagram if people have enjoyed this and they want to follow you.
Yeah, it's Chris Henry 2000.
There we go. And he's got the blue tick, so you'll know it's him, because being a celebrity and all that, he's got the verification. Awesome, guys. Chris, thank you for coming on, mate. I really appreciate your time, and I will speak to you soon, mate.
My pleasure, Oren. Thanks for having me on, mate. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCory. If you liked this episode, then please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening and share this on your social media. We'll see you on the next episode for more no-nonsense advice to help you supercharge your efforts in the gym, in the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. See you then.